Hello viewers, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2015 Toyota Prius with a 1.8 liter engine. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on the dash while the engine is running. The vehicle seems to drive fine, but the only issue is the check engine light that's remaining on the dash. Now I have to mention that the owner of this vehicle is one of our subscribers here on our YouTube channel. Her name is Sandy. Sandy drove all the way from Baltimore to come to our shop. So Sandy, I appreciate your business. I appreciate you coming to our shop. So now let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. After confirming the customer's complaint, then we're gonna connect a scan tool to the vehicle to see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine computer. So now let's go in the vehicle. I'm gonna start the engine. Okay, I'm going to press on the accelerator pedal so I can make the ICE run. That's how they call it on hybrid vehicles, the ICE, internal combustion engine. So the engine is running right now. The check engine light is on. So now I'm gonna show you the dash so you can see the check engine light. Okay, so as you can hear, the engine is running, and right there, the check engine light is on the dash. So customer's complaint confirmed. Let's scan the engine computer and see what we got. So this is a Toyota. So right there, the scan tool has identified the vehicle, 2015 Toyota Prius with a 1.8 liter engine. Everything looks good. We're gonna click OK. Let's do a code scan. This is gonna scan all the control units on the vehicle. So we have one code in the engine computer. So we have P0171, System 2 Lean Bank 1, and then that same code is listed as a history code, and then we also have evap codes, P0441, evap emission control, system incorrect, purge flow. And then the third one is P0455, evaporative emission control system leak, detected gross leak. Okay, that's good to know. Now, the customer did tell me that before she brought the vehicle to the shop, she told me that she had it scanned. Actually, she went to another shop. They did some work to the vehicle, and then the car was not fixed. The check engine light came back just a couple of days after the other shop worked on it. And then she had it scanned. She had it scanned somewhere, I think at the local parts store. They pulled a P0171 code. So the code that was retrieved was the lean code. So now she has more than one code, because when she brought the vehicle to the shop, she told me that she had a lean code. So in this video, I'm gonna focus on the lean code, but I will call the customer so I can let her know about the other evap code that we have, because these are two separate problems. So if I call her, and then actually maybe I should call her and let her know right now that we're checking this, because she wants us to fix the lean code. That is what she told me when she scheduled the appointment. But right now we have, we have two issues. We have a lean code and we have a evap code. So if we just fix the lean code, that lean issue will be gone, but the check engine light is gonna remain on, because the customer is bringing the vehicle to us because the check engine light is on. So this is where being clear about what we're doing is very important, because we have to communicate with the customer and let the customer know about what's going on. Because if we just fix the lean code and give it to her, and give the vehicle back to her, the check engine light is gonna come back on, and she may ask us and say, what did you guys fix? Because the check engine light is still on, okay? So we're focusing on the lean code, but we might have to ask for more diagnosis time so we can check the evap system to figure out why the evap code is in the engine computer. So now let's scroll down and see what else we have. I might have to call her and let her know. Okay, so right now on the generic side of the tool, we only have one code. We have the P0171 code in the generic side. system to lean bank 1. So now, since we are here to fix what's causing the check engine light to remain on the dash, we're gonna go into the engine computer. I wanna look at, let's look at our codes one last time. Okay, we have the lean code as the current code, history codes, same thing, lean code, and then pending codes, we have the evap code. So the evap code is in the pending code group. So the lean code is there as a history code and current code, but the evap code is pending. Now, this could be maybe when the customer filled the tank, maybe she didn't close the fuel cap all the way. I mean the gas cap in the back, maybe she didn't close it all the way because we have a gross leak here. That is something I see sometimes when people go to the gas station to fill up the tank. Sometimes they don't, tighten the gas cap all the way, and that can cause evap leaks. So, and we can find that out if we use a smoke machine to smoke the evap system. So since we are focusing on the lean code, so let's look at freeze frame. I want to look at freeze frame data to see what kind of data PIDs that the engine computer was receiving when the trouble code set. Now, I want to look at freeze frame also. The other reason that I want to look at freeze frame is I want to see if this code was set at idle or at higher RPMs, because let's figure out if this code was set while the vehicle was being driven or while the vehicle was sitting still, because we might have to drive the vehicle and duplicate those conditions so we can see what's not working well. So we're going to click here. Let's look at the data on the freeze frame. We have the freeze frame for the P0171 code. Here's what we got. So when this code set, the engine speed was 991. Okay, so just kind of slight above idle. Engine load was 29%. Mass airflow sensor grams per second was 1.67 grams per second. Coolant temperature was 185 degrees. So this code set at operating temperature. And then throttle sensor opening angle was 14.9%. I want to look at my fuel trim numbers. Let's see what our fuel trim numbers were saying. So purge valve flow is 0%. Now, I have seen purge valves that are stuck open and cause lean codes to be set. So that is something we need to check. We could have a vacuum leak, but since this code set kind of right above idle, we may not have a vacuum leak, but you never know. We're not just gonna assume, we have to check. So let's see what our fuel trim numbers say. Okay, so our O2 sensor bank 1 sensor 2 was giving us a value of 0.035 volt. And then, oh, check this out. Short-term fuel trim bank 1 was 19.5, and then long-term fuel trim bank 1 was 29. Okay, so we were definitely running lean. Okay, so we have high positive numbers on the short term and high positive numbers on the long term. So since this was just right above idle, this could be caused by a vacuum leak. Because if we go back to our mass airflow sensor, look at the mass airflow sensor value. Our mass airflow sensor value is very low. So mass airflow sensor grams per second is, when this code set, is 1.67 grams per second. So we most likely have unmetered air going in the engine. So some air is bypassing the mass airflow sensor. And that could be caused by a vacuum leak in the intake manifold or a broken intake manifold tube. Yeah, we have high positive numbers on the short term and long term, which indicates a vacuum leak. And this code was set while the vehicle was in closed loop. So that's good to know. Okay, the vehicle was not misfiring, no misfire count. Okay, so we're gonna attack this just like we attack any other trouble codes, any other lean codes or reach code. So now what I'm gonna do, I have gathered enough data. So what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna keep the ICE running, the internal combustion engine running. On these Priuses, I know if you turn the heat on, that can keep the engine running. And then we're gonna rev up the engine. We're gonna watch our fuel trim numbers to see if they change as we increase the engine RPMs. So let's back out. We're gonna go to data. Okay, so we have high, on the freeze frame, we had high fuel trim numbers at just above idle. The engine speed was 900 RPMs. So let's go to data display. Let's go to engine data 1. So I'm gonna focus on my fuel trim numbers and my mass airflow sensor data PID. So let's see if we have fuel trim numbers on this data group. Okay, no fuel trim numbers here. Oh, right here. Short-term fuel trim. Let's see, do we have long-term? Okay, we have long-term fuel trim here too. So let's customize this list. So we can stay in the first data group. So we're gonna deselect all these PIDs. We're gonna grab our engine speed. Let's grab our mass airflow sensor and map sensor data PID. Let's grab our battery voltage, coolant temp. Let's grab our purge valve data PID. Let's grab our O2 sensor data PID also. Short term and long term. Fuel system status. Okay, so these should be the only data PIDs that I want to look at. Let's list these data PIDs. So right now, so let me step on the accelerator pedal. So now we got the engine running. So the engine is fairly warm. I mean, it's fairly cold because engine temperature is 96 degrees right now. We have 24.2% on the long term, and then we have about 11.7% on the short term. So right now, total trim, so we are in closed loop. Total trim right now is, okay, so if we take the 24% that we have on the long term plus the 15.6% that we have on the short term, total trim right now, we're looking at about 40%. That's high, that's way higher than normal because total trim should be plus or minus 10% on a good running vehicle. So we definitely have a lean condition going on. So what we have to figure out now is, do we have a vacuum leak? Do we have low fuel pressure? Do we have leaking, partially clogged injectors? Now, since I'm holding the engine RPMs at about 25 RPMs right now, so we can already rule out a vacuum leak. We don't have a vacuum leak issue because we have high positive numbers right now at higher RPMs. So this will indicate either a low fuel pressure problem or a mass airflow sensor problem. Yeah, because high positive numbers at 25 RPMs, yeah, because the throttle plate is completely open right now. We have atmospheric pressure in the intake manifold, so the computer is having to open the injectors long enough to compensate for that excess air. Now, do we have excess air, or do we have a fuel system that's not working properly? We could have a fuel injector, we could have a fuel pump that's not sending the correct amount of fuel to the engine, or we could have partially clogged injectors. So based on the numbers that I have, since our fuel trim numbers are not getting better when we are increasing the engine RPMs, what I want to do now is I would like to go under the hood and check our fuel pressure, okay? Because right now, so total trim right now is 44%. So short term plus long term is over 40%. This is too much. Whoa. Dang, did you hear that noise? What was that? Okay, so we are in closed loop. Let's watch these numbers at idle. Okay, this thing is not even idling, but let me turn the heat on, because we know what kind of numbers we have at higher RPMs, but I want to watch them at idle. Because I know on these hybrids, if you turn the heat really high, it usually keeps the engine running. Let's see if the engine is going to start. Come on. Okay. There's probably another trick here to keep the ice running. Okay. Because right now I'm stepping on the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor, and our fuel trim numbers are climbing. So just watch the short term. Yeah, as soon as we go in closed loop, our fuel trim numbers keep going up. Okay, so, oh, check this out. Now it's idling. Okay, so at idle right now, so we have the same thing. So we're idling at about 900 RPMs, because what I wanted to see is right now I'm not stepping on the accelerator pedal. I wanted to see if our fuel trim numbers were going to get better at idle, and they are not actually. Right now total trim at idle is about 42%. Actually 50%, because short term is 17.9, and then long term is giving us a value of 32.031. Okay, so this Prius idles at about 900 RPMs. Okay, so we have high positive numbers at idle, and then those numbers are not getting better when we increase the engine RPMs. So this is a classic fuel delivery problem or a mass airflow sensor problem. Let me rev up the engine. Okay, nothing is happening. When I step on the accelerator pedal, let me turn off the heat. It's freaking hybrids, man. I don't know. You guys would probably make fun of me there. I don't work on a lot of hybrids, so I don't, like right now I'm stepping on the accelerator pedal, nothing is happening. Maybe this is normal. I think it's charging the hybrid battery, I guess. Okay, cool. Enough talking. Let me turn this off. All right. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Let's go under the hood based on the data. Knowing that our fuel trim numbers are not changing, we have high positive numbers on the short term and long term. We have the same numbers at idle, and pretty much those numbers are getting worse when we increase the engine RPMs. So let's go under the hood. First thing I'm gonna do is let's check our fuel supply to the injectors, and then we'll go from there. So now let's go under the hood. The first test I wanna do is I wanna check fuel pressure. I guess we could have also we could have checked fuel pressure by looking at O2 sensor data. When I was revving up the engine, if your O2 sensor is PAG rich, you can kind of rule out fuel delivery. But I didn't check that. I mean, I can kind of see. Let's pop this off first. Okay, so we have to do some tests to figure out what's going on with this engine. Okay, let's pop this cover out of the way. Where is the fuel supply line? Everything is so tucked over here. Now, guys, these lines over here, these orange lines you see, that's high voltage wiring. And these high voltage wirings are very insulated. So if you touch them, you're not going to get shocked or you're not going to die unless you open the covers and you start touching things that you're not supposed to touch, okay? So we're not working on the hybrid side of the vehicle. If you work on the hybrid side of the vehicle, you have to wear high voltage gloves and protective gloves to do that. So you have to know what you're doing. If you don't touch it because you could die. So let me grab my flashlight. I'm gonna figure out where the fuel supply line is, and then we're gonna connect our pressure gauge to it. And then we'll see how much pressure we have there. Actually, before I do that, let me look up the spec. Let's see what the fuel pressure spec is. Let's go to our guided component test. So let's go to engine, fuel system, fuel pressure test. Okay, so it says during cranking and while idling, fuel pressure should be about 44 to 50 psi. If pressure is high, suspect defective pressure regulator. Okay, pressure should remain at 21 psi or more after 5 minutes at rest. Okay, so I'm reading over here and here. Okay, so fuel pressure on this thing, use suitable adapter to connect 100 psi transducer to fuel inlet pipe from frame to pulsation damper on right side fuel rail. Okay, so our fuel pressure should be between 44 and 50 psi. So that is good to know. So now let's figure out how we're going to connect the pressure gauge to the fuel system. Let me grab my light. Let's see. We do have a fuel line back there. So Kyler, you won't be able to see this, but I'm going to have to connect first and then I'll show you. Man, there's no room around here. Jeez. What in the frick? There's no room here. No freaking room. Okay, so if you can come on this side, I'll show you the line that I'm talking about. So this over here, I don't know if you can see in there. Do you see this line? Mm-hmm. Not the first one, but the second one. Mm-hmm. That's the fuel supply line. So there is a connector there. So I'm gonna remove that cap, the little cap in front of it, and then I'm gonna disconnect it. I will get my pressure gauge teed into the line that goes, because that line goes to the fuel rail. So this over here is the rail. So this is our fuel rail, and then the line I just showed you goes below this EGR assembly, and then it goes to the fuel rail. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to disconnect the fuel line. I'm gonna attach my pressure gauge to it, and then I'll bring you guys back up. So after looking around, I realized that getting to the fuel line is gonna be very difficult to get to. So what I decided to do is I would like to remove this cowl. We have to remove the wiper motor so we can get access to the fuel line. So if we get this out of the way, it's gonna be easy to get to the fuel supply line. Now, the fuel line that supplies fuel to the injectors. Now, The other thing we could also check is the mass airflow sensor, because if we have a mass airflow sensor that's not reporting properly to the engine computer, that can cause fuel trim numbers to be higher than normal. But I don't think the mass airflow sensor is the problem based on the data that we saw. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove our wiper arms. So we're going to remove the first one over here. There's this cap, this little cap over here. I got to pull up. We're going to undo this nut. So once we undo this nut, the first arm should be able to come out. Okay, so we're just gonna rock this back and forth like that. There. Okay, so here comes the first wiper arm. We're gonna put it out of the way, and then we're gonna remove the second one. And these nuts are 14mm nuts. Okay. And then we're gonna pry this up just like that. Okay. So now the next step is removing, we're gonna undo this little cover here. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this cover. That covers the brake fluid reservoir, and then there's this little piece over here that we have to pry up. I believe this one just pops up, yeah, just like that. There's a little tab here that holds it in place. We're gonna get this out of the way. There's another one on this side. Same thing, pry that out and pull out. Okay, I'm gonna keep this over here in the car. And then we have tabs over here that we have to push in. Just like that. There's another one over here. Now there's a little plastic rivet here. Okay, nice. And then we're gonna lift and slide this out. Just like that. Perfect. Nice. So we're gonna put this out of the way. So now we're gonna remove the wiper motor assembly. There's an electrical connector here. There's a tab here. You press the tab down, then you pull out. And then we're gonna undo the nut. The bolt. Okay, we're gonna undo the bolts for the wiper motor assembly. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. We have one over here at the corner. There's another one here. Perfect. So now we can lift our wiper motor assembly out of the way. So as you can see, the wire is still attached to it. So we're gonna push these two tabs in. I'm sorry if my hand is in the way. Okay. And then this one here. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna get this out of the way. We are making progress. So now we're gonna move this wire out of the way. one more over here. There. All right. So now we're gonna remove this bottom tray. So to get this out, we basically have to undo all these 10mm bolts. So there's one here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have another one back here. We got 2 here. We have that, and then we have 2 more over there. This is pretty straightforward. Now we're gonna undo this one. So this is good. I guess we're gonna have enough room once we remove this. So this was Kyler's idea. Actually, I didn't want to take this out because I didn't want to do more work than I was supposed to. But then Kyler was like, don't you think it's gonna be easier if we take this out? I was like, okay, let's do it. So yeah, you were right, because right now it's gonna be a lot easier to get to the fuel line. So thanks, Kyler. Let's get this out. It's definitely gonna be a lot easier to get this removed. Okay. Then we have a couple more on this side. Nice. So this should come out perfect. It should come out now. There. Very nice. There's a little plastic piece over here. Nice. Ha ha ha. Look how much room we have here now. Ah, so much better. And if we want to check the purge valve, which I would like to, yeah, we have enough room here. So actually, cameraman Kyler, if you can zoom into this area here. So this is our fuel line that I was talking about earlier. So we're gonna remove this little cage. We're gonna open this. So we're gonna undo this. Okay, we got that. So now we have access to our fuel line. Okay, so I'm gonna disconnect this line. We have to be careful. There will be some fuel that might leak out of it. Oh, usually there's fuel that leaks out, but there's nothing. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab my fuel pressure gauge and my adapter so we can tee into this fuel line. So we're gonna use this Icon pressure gauge. Actually, I haven't used this pressure gauge yet. It's brand new. So let's see how it does. Oh, there's something here. This is odd. Now there's a shredder valve over here on this connector here. I always like to remove that shredder valve, but I'm gonna keep it on. Let's see how the reading is gonna be. And then I can remove it if I have to. So we're gonna connect our adapter here first. So the adapter is gonna go right here. Can you see this okay? Perfect. So we're gonna connect our adapter there. And then this line is gonna get connected here. Perfect. Okay, so right now we're teed into the fuel system And then I'm gonna connect my pressure gauge over here. Nice. Okay. So I'm gonna put my gauge right here. Okay, so hopefully our connection is good. Hopefully we are not gonna have a leak there. So now I'm gonna go in the vehicle and start the engine. When I start the engine, this pressure gauge should move. Remember, our spec was between 44 and 50 psi. So Kyler is gonna focus on the gauge. I will start the engine and let's see what pressure we have. I'm gonna start the engine. So as you can hear, the engine is running. Let's see, what's the pressure here? Oh, okay. So about 45 psi. That's not bad. I'm gonna rev up the engine. How high does it go? It's still the same, it's not going up. So it's not moving even when I rev it. Okay, so while the engine is running, let me bring up our scan data here. Okay, so we're building about over 40 psi. So according to what we saw on our service info, that means our pump is good. And this fuel system doesn't have a pressure sensor, because we could have looked at fuel pressure data PID, but this system doesn't have a pressure sensor. So if we have enough fuel going to the injectors, then why is this thing running lean? Let me graph our mass airflow sensor data PID. I'm gonna start the engine again. Let's see. I'm still looking at my fuel trim numbers. So right now when I rev the engine, the maximum number we have on the mass airflow sensor is 5.28 grams per second. Okay, so we are in closed loop right now. Let me graph our second O2 sensor. Second O2 sensor is stuck at... That's odd. Our second O2 sensor is stuck at 0. This is very odd. Okay, the engine is running. We have about 45 psi on the gauge. Our second O2 sensor value is stuck at 0 though. This is odd. Our first O2 sensor has a reading. Let me get rid of the mass airflow sensor. So this is odd. So second O2 sensor is stuck at 0, 0. The first O2 sensor, the air fuel ratio sensor, before the CAT has some activity on it, but the second one is stuck at 0. So I wonder if that's what's causing these lean codes, because the engine computer could be looking at the data or the signal coming from that sensor. If it's stuck at 0, 0, the engine computer may think like, you know, there's a lean mixture in the combustion chamber, and the engine computer is going to add more fuel more fuel in the cylinders. Because I'm thinking right now, guys, because I don't think we have a mass effort sensor issue. We have good fuel pressure. So if it's not that O2 sensor, then we could have partially clogged injectors. Because if we have injectors that are not sending enough fuel in the cylinders, that can cause this condition too. Okay, so we might switch directions here. We might have to check that O2 sensor to see what's going on with it. Yeah, because this is odd. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, O2 sensor, bank 1, sensor 2, stuck at 0, 0. That's not good. Let's get this engine to start again. This is very weird. So engine is running. We are in open loop. Now I can understand if with the O2 sensor is probably not warmed up yet. What's our engine temperature? Engine temperature right now is 163 degrees. Okay, so we are in closed loop right now. So we are in closed loop. I'm lightly touching on the accelerator pedal. Yeah. Look at the first O2 sensor. First O2 sensor is working, but second O2 sensor is stuck at 0. This is a problem. And the interesting thing is, we don't even have an O2 sensor code. Because if we have a bad O2 sensor, we could have had a code for it. This is odd, very odd. Second O2 sensor has a flat line stuck at 0 volt, 0, 0. So look at the first O2 sensor. First O2 sensor is moving. Nothing on the second O2 sensor. So what's the engine temperature right now? 186 degrees. Yeah, okay. Let's check this second O2 sensor. Yeah, all right. We're gonna switch directions here. Since our second O2 sensor is not doing anything, I want to get access to the wiring of the second O2 sensor. I want to check the wires. Let's make sure the wiring of the sensor is good. If the wiring of the sensor is good, I'm going to recommend replacing that sensor because it shouldn't be stuck at 0, 0. That's not good. Let me turn the key off. All right, let's figure out where that sensor is. So here is our exhaust. Okay, I might have to put this on the lift. All right, guys, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put this vehicle on the lift. We're gonna have to get to the sensor from under the vehicle. I'll get the vehicle on the lift and then I'll bring you guys back up.